My name is Joanna Gair. I've been a paper maker professionally since 1999. I was taught to make paper by Kay Lawrence at University of South Australia while I was studying for a painting degree. I was completely blinkered on painting. I didn't want to know about any other subject. It was all about the painting for me. And I was told I had to do a minor subject. And I was like, oh God, really? So they said, what about printmaking? And I said, all right. And then if you do printmaking, you've got to do paper making. I was like, oh, all right, never heard about that. Let's have a go. And as soon as I had my first go, I was absolutely hooked. And so I was lucky enough to be taught by one of the really, really special paper makers back in the day. I think Kay may have retired now, but she was an absolute mentor, just absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed her classes. So I still make paper fundamentally as they did back in the first century. So we're talking about really traditional, a hybrid between some Chinese, some Japanese, a little bit of Austrian, a little bit of Dutch paper making as well. So I like to think of it as wholly Tasmanian, as a conglomerate of all these different places. Much like myself, I grew up in the UK, but I also did my high school in Adelaide. And then I went back to the UK, and then I ended up in Tasmania, and I've been there for about 21 years, something like that. So in the vat today, and I will say these are all scaled down. In my actual studio, things are a fair bit bigger, and I have steel vats in the studio, and my press is probably about 3 times the size. So I like to think of these as my stunt equipment. It's like my little sort of, the sort of equipment that I can get in the back of the Mini without too much of a problem. So the pulp we've got today is linen cotton mixed with some lily. That's what it looks like when it's just come out of the Hollander beater. Unfortunately, without a Hollander beater, you can't make pulp of this quality. The rule of thumb is, this used to be rags. Before that it used to be plant, but this is actually fundamentally a rag paper with some plant inclusions. So the plant inclusions are what I get very excited about because it gives a decorative element to my paper. So all of the papers and cards and prints have all got a little bit of something special going on. Because I don't want to make white paper. It's a bit boring. If there's other people doing white paper, I want to make something, especially Tasmanian. So this has got lots of native goodness in it. There's no chemicals in it. The only thing I have added is some plant-based size, and that means that I can print on it without the ink running. So this is a very, very tiny little mould and decal. That's the mould, that's the decal. Decal from the German word cover, Deckel. And we clip them together into the vat. And we bring it up quite slowly but confidently is like the way I like to put it. And as we bring it up, I want to shovel those fibres together because under the microscope they're super duper long, and we want to make sure that they are not sitting on top of each other, just one on top. We want them to crisscross over to create a nice strong bond. Now it's an oxygen bond, there's no chemical bond, so essentially what we're relying on is time and water and pressure as well. So always drain off to one corner. You don't want to create internal rivulets in the paper because you then again make weaknesses within the paper. We can take off our decal. I was at a conference in Austria and I went to some of the paper making mills over in Austria, and I noticed they were using these side vats to actually clean off the decals before they lay them. I really like that idea because it means that you can keep your decal really nice and clean without too much hairiness going on. But you can see there that it's almost like a little miniature landscape. So it's not really paper at this stage, it's just a bunch of fibres and water hanging out together. Chunky as anything at this stage. This is probably going to be about 200 GSM, so quite weighty, almost like a card. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make a big sandwich, which we call a post of paper. I'm couching onto woolen felts. This is some interleaving, it's just an acrylic mesh. The idea being that you're just stopping the fibres ending up into the wool, and you're allowing the water to run through. So here's our couching or our couching, from the French word to lie down, also where we get the word couch from. And there we go. So that's it laid out. You can see the pattern of the mesh. That laid mesh it's like a little mark of authenticity. So you don't really notice it in the thicker, heavier papers, but in the lighter papers, if you held it up to the light, you would see those laid marks in there. It's a little bit like a watermark. We try not to get splashes onto the surface at this stage. If you do get them, there's quite a romantic terminology. They call them paper maker's tears. Not just because you're crying about the piece of paper you've ruined. I'm just going to give that a little squeeze. All right. So we essentially make a big sandwich of wet paper and felt. Now normally I'd be doing it sort of like a big post of about 25, 30 sheets. into the press. So we're going to remove about 60% of the water here. We don't want it to be dry because it's actually, it sounds weird, but it's really important for it to be a little bit wet in order to make it dry properly. So normally I would leave that into the press for about 15-20 minutes. I might go a little bit longer depending on the weight of the paper. But we'll do, again, stud paper making, so make that a little bit shorter. And it's funny, the application of even that small amount of pressure is enough to encourage those fibres to really consolidate and make that bond. So I can still pick it up, it's still quite strong at this stage. And you can touch it, it's like a little dishcloth, it's like soggy cotton wool, you might think. It's quite funny. You can't do an awful lot with it at this stage. I suppose you could cast with it if you wanted to, if that was your thing. To dry it, I like to use a smooth surface and a brush. In my studio I have steel sheets on walls, but I also have some painted surfaces like this, nice and smooth. This one's melamine. I might just get rid of that one. And then dry brushing from the centre out. And it's a bit tricky because we're open to the elements here with wind and the climate's obviously very evident here. It's a little bit warmer than it is in Tassie. So this would probably take 12 hours to dry, maybe here. In Tassie it might be, it could be a couple of weeks, let's be honest, especially in winter. But I've got a drying box, and I like using a drying box because it allows me to keep the paper nice and flat while also encouraging it to dry nice and slowly. It's really good for it to dry slowly because it forces the fibres to behave in a nice way that is very, very slow. So when you end up with your paper, when it's dried properly, it really holds together. It's got integrity. And that's essentially it. There's a wonderful history to paper making, so if you're interested in that, I'm happy to talk you through some of those aspects. But everything that I make here is made like that. There's no sort of quickie version of it. It's as time consuming as that, I'm afraid. So it's exactly how they made paper back when paper was first invented in the 1st century in China. Okay. Thank you. If you've got any questions, please let me know.